My impression is he was a lone wolf, whack job. These are crazy people.
President Donald Trump seemingly unshaken following a gunman in his vicinity for the third time in less than 2 years. This suspect, seen in surveillance video running through a security checkpoint and within moments being captured by law enforcement, is 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen from Torrance, California. He reportedly had a 1,000-word manifesto he sent to his family, now published in the New York Post, calling himself a, quote, friendly federal assassin, describing his targets as administration officials, not including FBI Director Kash Patel, adding, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. He also mocked the, quote, insane lack of security at the hotel, writing, I walk in with multiple weapons and not a single person there considers the possibility that I could be a threat.
We have preliminary work into some of his electronic devices and talking to some of individuals who knew him. It does appear that he did, in fact, have set out to target folks that work in the administration, likely including the president.
He had a lot of hatred in his heart for quite a while. And he just, I don't know, it was a religious thing. It was strongly anti-Christian. His family said he had big difficulty. Maybe they should have reported him a little bit more strongly, probably.
Other revelations so far that the suspect was part of a group called the Wide Awakes and attended a No Kings protest in California, where he also was working at an educational counseling and test prep company.
The wheelchair breaks.
Back in 2017, a local ABC station interviewed him about an emergency wheelchair brake he'd invented. The suspect is likely to face multiple charges and is expected to be arraigned on Monday in federal court in Washington, D.C. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Many of us are still processing Saturday evening. As journalists, we never want to become part of the story, but what happened at this year's White House Correspondents Dinner left us very little choice.
The night began as all correspondents' dinners do, tuxedos and fancy dresses, a red carpet. This year, extra notable because President Donald Trump attended for the first time in office. Guests had barely touched the salad portion of dinner when chaos and confusion rippled through the ballroom. President Trump and other government officials whisked out of the room by Secret Service and law enforcement. I took this video of the initial moments. Everyone dropped to the floor and took cover under tables or wherever they could.
There's loud booms, crashing sounds, plates, silverware, everything flying all over the place.
Directly next to our table, Congressman Jamie Raskin jumped to shield Kerry Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s sister.
You know, I thought immediately about Kerry's situation, having lost her father in gun violence assassination and her uncle.
After several minutes that felt like hours, the crowd learned the gunman had been apprehended and the coast was clear.
It turned into a night that neither of us thought was going to happen. We'll give you a quick scene setter though first. Washington Hilton behind us. You can see the guests from the White House Correspondents Dinner all leaving. There's the first responders. There's the security line.
About 2 hours later, the president gave a late-night press conference. Everyone in the briefing room, still in tuxedos and ball gowns, having gone straight from the dinner.
This was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful.
President Trump has called for the dinner to be rescheduled within the next month. On Sunday afternoon, the president of the White House Correspondents Association, Weijia Zhang, said the board will meet to determine how to proceed, and they'll give updates as soon as any are available. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
And as this all unfolded, one of our very own was inside the room. The National News Desk's Kayla Gaskins, who reports from Capitol Hill for us many mornings, was there and joins us this morning. Kayla, good morning to you. First of all, tell us where you were sitting and what you heard when all this stuff, shifted from celebration to chaos.
Well, good morning, Jan. So we just sat down at dinner. Our table was towards one of the exits in the back. So we did have a front row seat to people being escorted out of the room, and also security just pouring into the room in those initial moments. Jan, it really was surreal at times. I would say the most frightening moments were, of course, in the very beginning when we had very little information about what was going on. So we're all sitting down eating the salad portion of our dinner when the entire room just drops to the floor. So if you're facing the stage, we were seated off to the left side, and the gunman was heading towards the end, or attempting to head towards the entrance more in the center of the ballroom. So we didn't hear any of the gunshots, but we did hear all the initial chaos that happened right after that, which was...
What did they say initially when you were inside eating your salad, eating, you know, whatever? What did they say when they came in?
So we started hearing, where is he? Where is he? And it looked like, Jan, they were looking for somebody in the crowd, which was the scariest part of all of this. So all of the attendees, again, everybody's in tuxedos, they're in ball gowns, and they drop to the floor. They're crawling under tables, taking shelter in any way they can, while security is running on top of the tables, on top of the chairs, like jumping towards the center of the room with their guns, looking down at the floor. You take a second and look up, and they got the head table at the front of the dais gone immediately. I mean, I didn't even see that happen. I literally was looking down at my salad. I look up the next minute, the entire main table, the president, the first lady, they're all gone, and there's gunmen sitting there pointing out into the room, clearly looking for somebody. Now, again, this is speculation, but what I think is happening is they were getting all of the cabinet members that were peppered throughout the room. So the cabinet members were sitting at tables. One of my friends was sitting next to Kash Patel, for example. So they're mixing and mingling with the journalists, which is what this night is really all about. But that means they're not all clustered together. So their security teams are heading in there, and they have to find each and every one of them and then get them out to safety. So when they say, where is he, where is he, where is he, they could have been talking about the gunman, which is what I initially thought they were talking about, but they also could have been talking about specific cabinet members. And then as those cabinet members were getting ushered out of the room, Jan, we were by one of the exits that they were bringing them all by. So you didn't hear shots fired, get on the floor. You heard, where is he, where is he? Those are the first things you remember hearing. Talk to me very quickly about the check-in procedures. So I think at this point we've heard security at this thing was decently lax, especially for the high-profile level of the event that it was. I did not show a photo ID at any point in the night. Only flashed my ticket. Nobody even took a hard look at our ticket. So you did have to show your ticket in order to get onto the premise of the Washington Hilton hotel, which is where the event was being held. And then you had to flash it at certain points, as simple as that, throughout the hotel. Security got tighter as you got closer and closer and closer to the ballroom. And then getting the last checkpoint of security was just like going to say a typical political rally. You put your stuff in the metal detector. They walk you through. If it's necessary, they would wand you down. But it didn't feel... It's harder to get on an airplane, that's for sure. To put that into perspective. And there's two schools of thought on that, too, because I was just talking to Armstrong Williams, who's been to 16 of these, by the way, and he said there's this thought that, oh, if they do what they're, pat you down, do all the things, and scrutinize every single person, that there's this animosity from the media. Although in these kind of situations, you think you kind of need that. And this is one of the biggest reasons why, obviously, security is paramount in these, at these events. Well, Kayla, we're going to be talking to you again in the next half hour, and looking forward to hearing more about what transpired Saturday night. Thank you very much.